Hello, everyone. Good morning, true fan. Good morning. How are you? Good to see you. Welcome. Welcome. I'm going to pull myself up here just for a second. I forgot to do that. Good to see you all this morning. We are going to be talking about enabling this morning. Enabling. Y'all know I started a new series today, or the other day, Monday. I started a new series. We're going to be talking about some more controversial issues. And this morning's topic is enabling. So you're like, Ruth, why is enabling considered controversial, right? Well, because often enabling has a bit of a negative connotation towards that word, right? Nobody typically likes to be called an enabler. It sort of leads on to the fact or the idea that for some in some way, shape, or form, we are responsible for someone else's destructive behavior. Good morning, the positive pusher. How are you? We'll be listening. I appreciate that so much. I appreciate you having me on. Thank you. Welcome in. Good to see you all. Good to see you. So yes, if you have been called an enabler, or you know someone who is an enabler, then you know that sometimes it is often seen in a negative light. Good morning, Levi Boyd. How are you this morning? Welcome in. Welcome in. Good to see you. Good to see you. I'm happy you all are here, ready for class, ready for learning, ready to get some little golden nuggets that you can use as takeaways, or just hanging out. Whatever it is, I appreciate you all being here, truly. So, no one likes to be called that enabler, or wants to be seen as the enabler, because, that brings on the idea that it's our fault, that we're the ones that are allowing the person to be self-destructive. And it is not our fault, right? The enabler often sees themselves as helping the person and not enabling the person. They typically see it the opposite. So if the enabler is not seeing themselves as being the cause or being an enabler, and the person who's being enabled doesn't see themselves as it being a problem, then it's often hard to convince them otherwise. It's hard to convince them that, hey, this is a bad situation. You're allowing this person to be more and more destructive with their life. So it's often people outside of the situation who are looking into the problem and seeing it as a problem. And then we have to work to convince them that, hey, this is a problem, which can be hard to do when people don't see it the way you see it. So here is how we can begin to help them identify that they are indeed, in fact, an enabler, or if you are the one that's an enabler and you're not sure, or you're not ready to, claim that, then here are some things that can help you realize that you are actually potentially perpetuating the problem and not helping the situation, not helping it to get better. The first one it's a pretty obvious one. Are you making excuses for them or justifying their behavior, right? Do you find yourself saying things like, well, this happened to them when they were a kid, or they just went through that, or, any kind of excuses that we typically make, or, well, I can understand, or if I were in their shoes, I'd be doing the same thing, blah, 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 right? All these different things that we say that enables them. Or do you deny or ignore that they even have a problem, right? Oh, no, it's not really a problem. It's just a season they're going through. Or we often say this with teenagers, this is just a season. They'll outgrow this behavior. They'll outgrow this these destructive ways, right? And then what happens is that it becomes a habit. It becomes a long-term habit. It becomes an addiction. Things that we think that they'll outgrow tend to become permanent. So we'll deny it or ignore that it's a problem. Do you put their needs and wants or priorities before your own? Are you making sacrifices that they are not making? You go without. You're like, oh, do you find yourself sort of shifting your life around trying to provide for them, making sure that making sure that their needs are met, and they're not even doing those things for themselves. This is a very big sign that you are becoming an enabler. Do you have a hard time saying no when they ask you for things? Do you feel like you can say no, or are you struggling with guilt or shame or even fear of how they may respond or act to you if you don't give them what they're asking for? Are you covering things up? Do you find yourself having to hide what you're doing in order to do for this other person? These are all very clear signs of being an enabler. So if you've altered your life, if you've altered your relationships with others because you know that they are not accepting of what it is that you're doing to help this other person, and you're getting in arguments about it, you may even be, fighting about what it is that what you're doing for this person. These are all clear signs that you may be an enabler, or things that you can let the person know that helps them to know that they're being an enabler. Here's another one that I find to be also a thing that just people ignore. Are you at peace about it? Do you have peace about the things that you are doing? Or is there that little something in the back of your mind that says, you know what, you've probably done enough, or this is too much, or this is not okay, and you're just ignoring that little bit of voice, that little voice in the back of your mind? These are all signs letting you know that you are an enabler, or that the person is an enabler, right? So if you fit in any of those things, then very likely you can take on this title. So what enablers don't realize is that whether you're an addict or a gambler, or even a food addict, or if you are a sex addict, or if you're a thief or pedophile, whatever it is, when we are enabling the person to dive more and more into that, we're actually prolonging their process of healing. We think that we're helping, but we're actually prolonging the process of them getting better. If they are not seeing it, if they are not able to realize that they have a problem, like we are removing their ability to be awakened to the fact that they indeed have a problem, because we're enabling it. We're making it seem like it is okay when it's not okay. And sometimes what we don't realize is that they actually need us to say no. They need us to say no. They want us to say no because they can't control it themselves. And the more that we give, the more that we allow this sort of self-destructive behavior, or condone it, or even, make it easier for them, the harder it is for them to stop. So sometimes they need us to say no. They need that person in their life who is willing to put their foot down and say, no, I'm not doing it. You're not taking care of yourself. This is not good for you. And I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm not going to help you destroy your life. I'm not going to help you continue down this destructive pattern that is not going to benefit you in any way. And because it's not good for them, it's not good for us. The whole situation is bad. So sometimes when we think that they'll be mad about us saying no, and they may get mad about us saying no, it's very likely that they will. But they know in the back of their minds also that they need us to say no, because that helps them. That helps awaken them to the fact that, you know what, I do have a problem. This is an issue. I do need to probably do something about this. And if you are my supplier of whatever it is that you're supplying, when that stops, it awakens them to the fact that I need to do something. I may need to do something about this. And they will hopefully, prayerfully start that process of healing and working on doing something to better the situation. In order for any type of healing to take place, addicts need to be responsible for their own choices and their own behaviors, and suffer their own consequences. It's part of, if you've ever been to any sort of 12-step program, or been through any sort of 12-step program, the first thing you do is acknowledge that you have a problem, right? And you have to start taking ownership and taking responsibility for the things that you say and do, and realizing that whatever choices we're making has consequences. But if we remove those consequences, then what's going to happen? You're going to continue to do the same things that you've always done, because nobody's suffering, or you think nobody is suffering. When you think about children, right? And I often bring in examples of kids, because I have kids, and kids, a lot of people have kids or no kids. When you are dealing with a child and you want them to stop doing something, a lot of times we will allow them to do certain things up to a certain point, so that they realize that, oh, this is not good. We need them to understand what it feels like, or what could potentially happen, so that they'll be awakened and enlightened in knowing that, oh, I better not do that, right? So we tell them, don't get too close to the fire, right? But we'll allow them to put their hand close enough so that they can feel the heat, right? So they can feel that heat and know, oh, that is, potentially harmful. But if we stop them from ever knowing what fire feels like, knowing what heat feels like, then they'll just put their hand right on top of a fire and not think anything of it, right? Because we've enabled them to not know what fire feels like and what heat feels like, and the potential destruction that it can cause. So it's the same sort of process. You may allow them to know what it feels like to fall off their bike, so that they learn that, oh, I need to really work on keeping balance. We may allow them to bring home a bad grade, so that you don't want to do your homework, or okay, don't do your homework. They bring home a bad grade, then they realize, oh, okay, this is not what I want to do. Maybe they don't want to take a bath, they don't want to clean, they don't want to do their hygiene. What happens? They get a cavity, or they end up getting smelly. It's like, oh, I didn't realize that me not taking a bath causes me to smell this way, right? So we allow kids to experience and feel certain things, so that they understand the consequences of their decisions. Well, adults and addicts need the same thing. They need that same type of that same type of understanding. They need to realize that when you make these choices, you suffer these consequences. But if we take those consequences away, then they don't realize, they never come to realize that their choices are causing these effects. And it can be difficult. It can be difficult to watch a person suffer when they don't have to, or when it's so easy for us to just reach in and save them from that destruction, when it's so easy for us to help them keep their house. It's so easy for us to make a payment so that they don't lose their car, or that they have food on their table. But they're not willing to make those sacrifices. When they get money, when they get the resources to do what they can do to take care of themselves, they don't do that. They use that money to do the things that they want to do, and then they depend on the enabler to fill in the gap, right? To replace what it is that they have spent, use their money or use their time and their energy doing, and expect the enabler to fill in the gap. Good morning, Harrison. How are you this morning? Good to see you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, and that is the type of, patterning that we have to get out of. We cannot be that filler, that gap filler, that that safe space for them to land, in the sense of allowing them never to feel the consequences of their actions and their choices. We don't do it to children, and we don't need to do it to adults and to addicts who are struggling and causing destructive behavior in their lives. Because what happens is we're causing more harm than good. They are, suffering. They may suffer longer. They may, be struggling in the addiction longer, because we are allowing them to continue to be an addict easily. If we allow them to easily, do the things that they're doing, then they'll just continue to do it longer. Versus if they suffer some consequences earlier, they may not, have to deal with it for so long. It can feel like we're not showing love to the person. And they will often argue with us that we don't love them because we're not doing, because we're not providing, we're not filling in those gaps. They'll want to argue, they'll want to get mad, they'll want to cuss and fuss and do all the things that they do, and to make us feel guilty, or to make you feel guilty that you don't love them, and claim that it's your fault or you're the reason that I'm doing this. We cannot work or to stop them from hitting rock bottom just because we don't want to see it and feel like we're the cause of their destruction. Okay. It almost becomes a self-destructive type, the reverse, because we don't want to see them suffer, because we don't want them to, deal with the guilt of them, or feel like we're guilty of them not having a home, or guilty of them not having food or clothes or a life we provide, or because we made different choices in life, and we feel guilty about that. We don't provide. We want to provide for them. We want to do for them so that we don't feel guilty, when it's not our decisions. It's not our decisions that put them in that situation, but it is part of our decisions that is helping to keep them in it. Okay, does that make sense? If we are continuing to provide, continuing to enable, continuing to make a way, continuing to prevent them from feeling their destruction, then we're enabling, allowing that self-destructive behavior to go on for longer than it possibly needs to. So here's the thing. What if the exact opposite? We worry so much about them being mad, about them being angry, about them losing this or that, or, all the things in their life that we know that they need in order to have some sort of quality of life, right? But what if the opposite happens? We don't think about the opposite when we're enabling. We don't think about the fact that we're allowing this to continue to happen. They may get worse, right? Their addiction may get deeper. They may fall deeper into their addiction, and it lasts longer and be harder for them to come out. The longer we enable it, the worse it can get, and the harder it becomes for them to be able to come out. What if they actually lost? Right? What if they actually lost more? We don't think about, because we've allowed this to go on longer, because they've gotten deeper into their addiction, whatever their addiction is. They've lost more, right? They've lost the relationships with family. They've lost jobs. They've lost their home, and maybe they've even died. Like, what if they actually die because we allow the addiction, enable the addiction to go on even longer than what it necessarily may have need to. We don't look at it from the opposite perspective. We think we're saving the person when actually we could be causing more destruction. And if that more destruction is causing them more loss of relationship, more loss of things, or even loss of life, we don't think that we're enabling that portion of it. So when we change our perspective and thought process, then it can help pull us back from the idea that, what, if my helping them, if my enabling them to be destructive longer, or cause more damage, then what kind of guilt and shame are we going to feel behind that? But we don't look at it that way. We just think, no, I'm just helping them, stay on their feet. I'm helping them to keep a roof over their head. But they're using their time and their money and their energy and their resources to continue the pattern and the destructive behavior. When they may say, well, you know what, instead of doing this, I'm going to go ahead and, pay my rent, or I'm going to do what I need to do, right? Sometimes, right? It depends on what kind of addiction it is. So how do we talk about this issue of enabling? So let's look at our principles of taming the tongue and approaching with compassion. The T in talk stands for tame the tongue, and the A in talk is approaching with compassion. So often when we are dealing with an enabler, like if you're the person who's not the enabler, but you know an enabler in your life, a family member, a friend, a loved one, whoever, often we want to get angry, mad. We want to it makes us so mad that the situation goes on because they are not seeing it, right? They don't see what they are causing. Good morning, Vernell Livingston. How are you this morning? Good morning, Chef BC. How are you? Good to see you all this morning. We are talking about the enabler. Beautiful chat here, listening and working. I appreciate you all, tuning me in this morning. I love it. I'm so thankful for you all and grateful for you all giving me this time and space in your life, because you could be doing anything, and you've chosen to allow me to be here. So thank you for that. So when we're talking about taming the tongue, we want to often have to deal with our anger, right? We get angry for multiple reasons. I'm good by the grace of God. Good. Absolutely. Absolutely. They don't see because they don't see the damage they're causing. They don't see how they are potentially making a bad situation worse. They're sacrificing more than they should, right? They may be unwilling to listen, and they're often unwilling to stop, right? Because they don't see it the way we see it. They're like, no, I'm really helping this person. I'm not causing more damage. I'm hurting them. So we get mad and we yell and we fuss and, what all the things that we do. But either way, the relationship gets worse all the way around. So rather than getting mad and angry, taming our tongue, working on controlling the things that we say to them, right? You're stupid. This is ridiculous. Are you insane? How is it that you can think that this is a good situation when it's clearly not, right? We start name calling, we start bashing them, we start, hitting them over the head with the things that they're doing. And what happens, they become more and more defensive. They become more and more resistant. And, they'll shut those doors off and completely close us off to anything that we're trying to say. And now we're no longer being effective. So we have to learn to approach with compassion when we're speaking to the enabler, right? And this means, yes, amen, not willing to listen. They're not willing to listen. So that means we have to change our language, because that language that we're giving them is not effective. It's not effective. And there is nothing that speaks louder than the language of love. And so we have to work to try to have some empathy. We have to work to try to show some love and encouragement and support. And we also have to be willing to offer help. I've been in this situation all my life, so I fully know how difficult this can be to try to change the language in speaking to an enabler. But here is what I have found to be effective. One of the reasons enablers continue to enable is because they feel like they are alone in the situation, that nobody cares but them. Nobody cares about the person that they love. Nobody cares about the person that they are, taking care of but them. Good morning, Clean Mills. How are you? Good to see you. So they feel like they're the only ones that has to fix it. They have to fix it, even though they may be going about it the wrong way. They may be making a bad situation worse. Because they feel like they're the only ones that care, they're going to do whatever they need to do to continue to enable this destructive behavior. So that means we have to change our language and show them that no, we care too. We love too. We care about them. We may care about the person who they're enabling. We may show love. And so we have to change our language and saying things like, I understand how you feel about this person. I know this person means everything to you. I know that maybe you took care of them. Maybe you raised them. Maybe they've been in your life for many, many years, right? So we have to start with, I understand, right? Creating empathy. I understand how much this person means to you. And then let them know that, but we also care about them, and we're concerned that this situation is not getting better. It's actually getting worse. So then we can start going down the lines of, when you're making sacrifices to do this, helping them see it outside of the way they're currently seeing it. So we may, rather than saying, calling them stupid or ridiculous, or are you crazy? All these horrible things that we tend to allow to come out of our mouths because we don't understand the behavior. We have to say, I understand that you love this person, and I understand that you don't want to see them hurting. You don't want them to see, you don't want them to be without. I appreciate you listening. Thank you so much. Clean Mills. I appreciate you listening. I don't want you to think that I don't care. I do care, but I'm concerned that you're not seeing that because you are allowing this behavior to continue, this person is actually getting worse. You're prolonging their healing. You're prolonging their willingness to want to try to get help because you're replacing it. And then use examples, just like I gave you all as the child, right? We allow kids to go through certain things because we want them to understand that this is not good for them. And so once they have that little bit of awakening, then we know that they can work to make different decisions. But, and it's the same thing with that person that we're enabling. If we allow them to go without food, to know what it feels like to be hungry, to know what it feels like to not have a roof over their head, or to know what it feels like, then it may awaken them. That may be the rock bottom that they need to say, you know what, I'm ready now to go, take on this class, right? Or go to rehab. Maybe I'm ready to make some changes. I'm ready to sit down and talk with you. I'm ready to ask for some help because no one is helping me anymore continue down my destructive behavior. No one's enabling me to be able to to have my addiction anymore. No one is enabling me to not have to work, or all these things that we do, whatever it is that we're preventing. If we allow them to feel some of the consequences of their decisions, then they'll be more willing to say, oh yeah, I'm ready to make a change, right? But if we don't, if they never feel it, if they never feel like they are causing any destruction, causing any harm, they never feel any loss, then they're just going to continue to do what they're doing. They have no reason to stop. They have no reason to want to make change. And we have to help show them that you have a reason that you need to try to make change, because what you're doing is destroying you, or it's destroying this family, it's destroying our lives, whatever it is. So speak from a place of understanding rather than judgment. And we often want to bring judgment. We often want to show judgment and place judgment on what they're doing rather than understanding, empathizing, and giving them things to do to be willing to make change. And you may have to step in. That means we may have to step in and help. How can I help you with this? So that they know that they're not alone. You may have to help them work their finances. You may have to take over their finances. This is something that I've had to do. I had to take over my family members' finances so that they would not. But if they trust you enough to do that, then do that. Or if maybe they don't trust you, but there's somebody else that they trust. So you can work to help them get help from someone that they do trust. You may need to be a referee, right? You may need to be a chaperone when they're around this person, because they're so easily persuaded by the person who's being enabled, that they don't know how to say no. They don't have the language. They don't have the willpower, and so we may have to chaperone. Be there as a chaperone to, I'm sorry, I heard something on my patio. We may have to be a chaperone to, for them to know that we're there for them, so that we can help them be strong, right? So that they're no longer not around this person when they're by themselves. And so they'll have the strength to be willing to say no, help them find the language, help them find the courage to say no, or be there for them when they do say no, because when they say no, immediately they're dealing with their guilt. They're feeling their guilt. And so and then they'll go back and say, oh, I can't deal with that guilt. I can't deal with the knowing or the thought of them suffering. And so they'll go back after they said no. So when they say no, have them call you or be there for them and say, hey, you did the right thing. This is their choice. These are their decisions. They're going to have to feel the consequences of what it is they're dealing with. This person says, I have been an enabler for a really long time. And when I realized and changed, it was hard, but I see the changes in the lives of the ones I was enabling. Slow, but I can see it. I love that. I love that. And it is. And those are the very things that we have to encourage them with. That it is not easy. It's not easy, especially when we have the means, when we have the know-how to prevent them from falling. We want to do that. When we see a child fall off their bike, we want to run and rush and stop them like, no, no, no. But then it's like, well, if they understand what it feels like to fall, then they'll work a little harder at trying to maintain balance. And it's the same thing with an addict. If we allow them to feel some consequences and suffer some consequences of their choices and decisions, then it'll allow them to work to try to, do better. Okay. And it's not immediate. And that's the other thing that is hard, is that addiction of any kind, whatever the addiction is, it is not an overnight process. There are those people who can stop what they're doing and never pick it up again. But that is not often the case. Often addiction is something that is a process that requires healing over a long period of time. And that means we have to watch for a long period of time them struggle. And that means for a long period of time, we have to continue to say no or limit what we do in order to help support them and encourage them. So being very careful about not doing too much or not doing anything at all. Be a prayer warrior. Help them find a professional. Like I said, for me, if the person is spiritual, I always definitely work to come from that spiritual aspect of the conversation, helping them to realize, giving them those scriptures that, for man, it is impossible, right? For us, for man, it's impossible to say, but with God, all things are possible, right? Or scriptures of hope, different stories of strength, ways that you've overcome, personal stories that you've dealt with. All this stuff helps to be to be relatable. Vernell says, and they have to be ready for the change for themselves and not be defensive or go into defense mode. Absolutely. You are right about that. We cannot make the decisions for them. And I talked about this Monday when we were talking about the addict. We cannot make the decision for them to enable, but we can encourage them, and we can encourage them to make a change in their decisions by not enabling their destructive behavior. So it goes hand in hand. And the sooner we see that, the better off we'll be. So they may struggle. It may be hard. You may have to pull back. You may have to get someone in your corner that's going to help you be strong. You may need to have someone take over your finances or be in the conversations with you when you're talking to this person. Whatever it is you have to do to strengthen yourself, because we love and it's hard to go against what we feel so compelled to do. It's difficult. I know that it is. But when we realize that we're causing more harm than we are good, it makes it a little easier. It makes it a little easier. And it puts them in a position to make better decisions. And that's in the end what we want. That's what we want. So reassure that enabler. If they're coming to you and they're getting mad at you, reassure them that you love them. Reassuring them that you're saying no because you love them. Be consistent in showing that love. And not showing love by enabling to destroy themselves. Be consistent in showing love and saying, I'm not going to give you this money. I'm not going to, remove this consequence from you because I love you. And I want you to understand that it is not that you deserve more than this, that you can do more. And if I do it for you, then you'll never know that you're strong enough to be able to do it on your own. And they may not like it, and it's going to be hard, and they're going to cry, and they're going to whine, and they're going to do all the things that they do. They're going to get mad. They're going to get angry. They're going to not talk to you. They're going to not take your phone calls. They're going to do everything they can to try to stop you, to try to make you do what they want you to do. But you have to be strong. You have to say, And if you're not strong enough, get that person in your life who can help you to be strong, so that they can get where they need to be and making their decisions. But reassure them, don't go down that road of, it is really, really hard. It is, clean. It is. And I know, and I'm not telling you all to do something that I have not absolutely had to do myself. If you watch my course on Monday, I talked about addicts. I had addicts in my family, in my immediate family, my whole life, and so I know how easy it is to get into an enabling position based on guilt, based on fear, worry, all of it. I fully understand how difficult it is, but I've also seen the progress. I've seen the strength that the person has been able to find within themselves simply because I removed myself from the situation. I took my hand off, right? We took our hand off the person, and they all of a sudden realized, wow, I can do more than I thought that I could. I can make better decisions than I realized. I don't have to live this way. I don't have to be dependent on this person. There is a God out there who can provide for me, and not just the people who I immediately depend on. But if we don't get out of the way, they'll never discover these things for themselves. And so know that it can happen. Trust that it can happen and that it can be. He says, I remember my entire family thought me mean, yes, or just outright selfish, yes. I felt pain, but I knew it was time. They needed to grow, because if I'm not around, what happens? That is exactly right, Clee. That is exactly right. I was called everything under the sun by my immediate family members, and I remember the pain and hurt that I felt because my family thought that I was being so mean. Everybody was helping but me, right? Everybody was doing something but me. And I was helping. I would go to the meetings. I would, let the person know that I love them. I would, try to be there for them in ways that I could, but I could not allow myself to feed their destruction. I just couldn't. It didn't sit well in my spirit to continue to feed their destruction. And what happened when one person was dropping off after another, they were suffering because they suffered longer than they needed to, because they didn't realize that they had the strength in them to live a better life and to be able to do more for themselves, because everybody was too busy trying to prevent them from falling. Okay. And then what happens when nobody was there? They rose to the occasion. They did what they needed to do in order to keep a roof over their head, in order to, make better decisions, right? So look at it, think about it from that perspective, and realize that that you can do it. But yeah, I was called everything under the sun. I mean, there was no name that I was not called. People thought I was mean and this and that, and I thought I said, I'm sorry that you feel that way. I realize that you don't understand what's going on in my mind, but these are my decisions to make. This is my family member. These are the choices that I'm making, and this is what I can be at peace about. This is what I can live with. This is what I can lay down at night and go to bed and realize and not feel like I'm causing more destruction than harm. And me and this family member still have a good relationship. We have a decent relationship to this day. I may not be their favorite person, but there's a respect that we have for each other, and a love that we have. This person still tells me they love me all the time. And they tell me they love me because I said no. They tell me they love me because I said no. And we don't anticipate that. We don't think that will be the case, but that has been the case. Because you said no, because you didn't do what I asked you to do, I found some strength that I didn't know that I had. So take that with you, and let that be. Experience is the best teacher when you don't take wisdom. Yes, experience can be the best teacher. Yes. All right, so I'm going to head out. It has been a little bit longer than I anticipated, but I hope that somewhere in this conversation, you found some strength, or you have been able to have a different perspective on how you can change your ways or how you can help someone else change their ways, and realize that their love, the best way to love a person sometimes is to say no. Sometimes it's the best way is to say no. All right. That is showing love. That is showing love. All right. I'm going to say a prayer and then we're going to head out. All right. Father, thank you for giving us the strength to do the things that we need to do when it is sometimes so very difficult to do. Father, you allow us to suffer the consequences of our decisions. You don't always step in and save us when we do wrong, when we make bad decisions. You allow us to go through. You allow us to feel the pain. You allow us to feel the hurt, the disappointment. You allow us to suffer in order that we will be better. So why? So that we will come to you. Sometimes we won't come to you, Father, if things are always in a good position, but you allow us to feel the pain and destruction of our behaviors so that we know that we can come to you as our God, as our Heavenly Father. And Father, help us to remember that when we are dealing with our and the people that we are enabling, if we are in the way, that they are never going to seek you, that they're never going to trust you, they're never going to know what you have the ability to do for them, how you can change their life. So, Father, help us to get out of the way. Give us the strength and the courage to say no when we need to say no, to step aside, to close our eyes, to hang up that, to not pick up that phone, to not open that door, to not reach into our purses or pocketbooks and give when we know that it's not in the best interest of the one that we love. Father, nobody loves our loved ones more than you, because we are all your children. And we are not you. You know their needs better than we do, and you can provide for their needs better than we can. So help us to get out of the way so that you can step in and do the things that you need to do in order to get this person where they need to be. You have plans for their life since the day that they were born, and we don't know what those plans are, but you do. So, Father, help us to be focused on ourselves. Give us the strength and the understanding to know that when it's okay for us to step in and do the things that we need to do, and when it is not, make it clear. Strengthen every person watching today. Encourage, help them to place people around them to encourage them and strengthen them and do what they need to do. We love you. We thank you. We appreciate who you are in our life and all the things that you do for us in spite of. These things we ask in your son, Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Great talk. Thank you so much, Harrison. I appreciate it. Thank you all. Let's see. Tomorrow I have a tip coming out, and Friday we will be back here for a talk on therapy. Okay. We'll be back here for a talk on therapy. I know a lot of you all have maybe struggled with the thought of therapy, or have some, taboo thoughts about therapy. And so that's what we're going to be talking about on Friday morning. All right. So you all take care. Have a wonderful day. Go and be strong, and be the light. Okay. Be the light in this world of darkness. I love you all. You take care. You can do this. You can do it.